Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you in another video. All right, while you were sleeping, Paul George signed a 4-year, $212 million deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. End of an era with the Clippers. The Sixers also signed Drummond, Eric Gordon. They re-signed Kelly Oubre, and they re-signed Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey got 5 years, 206. And it might have been something else they did too. But they put together a whole squad, man. Philadelphia, they had a lot of cap space. Most of the players that they had were, free agents. And we knew that their small forward position was going to be addressed because they were not happy with Tobias Harris last year and how everything went there. So Philly's different now, man. Philly's different now. They did some good things. They still got the TikToker McCain down there that they drafted. He's a lottery pick that kind of fell to them somewhere in that range. I guess that's good value for him. Knockdown shooter. So Kelly Oubre also resigned. If I didn't mention him already, he too resigned. So Philadelphia is trying to push against the Celtics and the Knicks for the Eastern Conference. But health is everything for that team. I just don't think their pieces are as sturdy as New York's and Boston's could potentially be. Joel, I just don't trust he could stay healthy. And Paul George had his injury issues, obviously. So it gets a little tricky when trying to project them being as good as they hope to be. But what I can say is there's a clear-cut big three in the Eastern Conference right now, and it ain't the Indiana Pacers being involved in that. It's the Sixers, it's the Knicks, and it's Boston. So that is what needs to be said. Of course, the Laker fans, including myself, are laughing at the Clippers. You gave up all that stuff for Paul George and get nothing out of it. Yeah, he was running around on your team, but you didn't do anything. You didn't even make the finals. Year in, year out, nothing. They gave up SGA. They gave up like 6 picks. One of them ended up turning into J-Dub. 2 of them haven't even been drafted yet. And Paul George is already gone. It is just unbelievable how ridiculous that ultimately became for the Clippers. And to lose Paul George for nothing, not even a decent sign and trade. I just don't know what the hell the Clippers are doing. They should have did a sign and trade with the Warriors. I guess at that time they felt there was a damn good chance he would re-sign with them. But you can't take a damn good chance when you already more than so many of your picks for this person. You have to capture something for them. We talk about this all the time. So the Clippers are in shambles. I don't know what they're going to do. They signed Derrick Jones Jr., but they lost Paul George. I don't particularly think that's a good thing. They signed James Harden to like a 2-year, $70 million deal, which is awful for James Harden at this stage in his career. They got what seems like an imminent trade going on for Russell Westbrook, headed probably to Denver if what I listened to was going to happen. They picked up KPJ, Kevin Porter Jr., who of course was out of the league last year for some really terrible domestic stuff that we talked about extensively on this. So that's a talented young player they're bringing in, slapping next to James Harden, slapping next to Derrick Jones Jr., but we got to see what Kawhi thinks of what's going on here. You got to see if there's going to be another big move made, but that's $200 million worth of small forward that just exited your franchise for nothing at all. And you don't plan on tanking in a Western Conference that's getting better and better and better. Are they going to be the landing spot for Klay Thompson? Obviously, I want my Lakers to get him, but from what I understand, if we do a sign and trade, we're hard capped. I don't think Klay is going to choose the Clippers, and I don't think Klay is going to sign with the Lakers outright because he wants to make more money, and a sign and trade could help him do that. So if you're asking me, I think Klay Thompson's a Dallas Maverick because they're going to be willing to make that sign and trade happen. I don't think the Lakers are. So I just want to let everybody know that on a side note. But yeah, man, I don't think Klay's going to the Clippers. I think it makes no sense to go to the Clippers. I don't think it makes sense for Kawhi Leonard to stay there either. I think it's time for Kawhi Leonard's contract to be on the move as well. But they signed James Harden to this deal that ultimately needs to be a win-now deal. This is a lot of... I think the Clippers overplayed their hand with Paul George. I think they automatically assumed Paul George was just staying. But it really didn't pan out that way for them. And now their team is not good enough to win in the West, but they're still signing win-now players. It's in shambles, man. In absolute shambles. That's what I see there as a Clipper team in absolute shambles. And Derrick Jones Jr., I think, just to talk about Derrick Jones Jr., he signed a 3-year deal. I don't remember how much. But I think Dallas made a mistake, man. They signed Najee Marshall to a 3-year deal, essentially choosing Najee Marshall over Derrick Jones Jr. Najee Marshall was a nice role player in New Orleans for a long time. I saw him play some good defense, hit some jump shots. But Derrick Jones Jr.'s defensive ability not only came from his ability to run around, but he could fly. Lob threat, long arm. There's no way in hell I'm choosing Najee Marshall over Derrick Jones Jr. in a nutshell. Not after what I just seen. I don't think Najee Marshall is a complete scrub or anything. I think he's a solid role player. But Derrick Jones Jr. just proved himself to be a better one. A lot better for a Dallas team that I think this move did not make them a better basketball team. For those who are really high on Najee Marshall, I get it. I've seen him play well. But he's a role player, like a real one. Not even like a high-level role player. It's like a role player. And so bringing him in place of Derrick Jones Jr., who really did play a high-level role for you, who really does have extraordinary leaping ability that really helped him on the defensive end, for a guy that's a little closer to the ground than Najee Marshall, I don't get it. And I get not wanting to invest in Derrick Jones Jr. Maybe you think this is his peak. Maybe you think you've seen the best out of him. He hasn't worked in a lot of places. He happened to work in Dallas. So maybe you just want to move on. But to bring in Najee Marshall, I don't see it. I don't see it. And a lot of people are praising that move, but I don't get it. So I just want to put that out there, Dallas. I really don't understand that move. There's no way, after what I just saw, I think I'm a better team without Derrick Jones Jr. I don't know how I think that. But it looks like Klay may go there, but I don't like that move. You got to keep Derrick Jones Jr. if you're the Dallas Mavericks. And if you're moving on from Derrick Jones Jr., it's not like I'm looking at Najee Marshall saying, yeah, that's my Derrick Jones. He's not your Derrick Jones. And they're going to find that out. So I would tell Klay, are you sure about going to Dallas, bro? Because I don't think they're going back to the finals. Not with that type of move being made. That Derrick Jones Jr. was very essential to them getting to where they were going. And they just let him walk out the door. And that type of athleticism at the wing spot should not be exiting that organization. Should not. So yeah, I'm confused by that, man. I'm really confused by that. Him going to the Clippers, he's gonna get opportunities, but I don't know that the Clippers are going to play very well this season. I'm not saying they're not gonna make the playoffs because they still got a lot of guys there. And if KPJ comes back and he's the same guy he was with the Rockets, that's a super talented young player. So you love having him going forward so long as he doesn't do anything to hurt himself off the court, with behavioral issues. And another thing is the Clippers really are signing a bunch of people that have behavioral issues. They signed Infinity Money, Kai Jones. We talk about him a lot. They signed Josh Primo. And now they signed KPJ. And they slapping him next to James Harden. I believe in second chances in the NBA in a lot of cases. I think Jonte Porter probably should be given a second chance too, since all he did was bet on the game, which is terrible, but not nearly as terrible as beating the hell out of somebody. But nevertheless, man, it is what it is. I think the Clippers are in shambles. I think whoever's running the organization right now needs to really take a look in the mirror and figure out if the path they're going down is a good one, because you're going to have to trade all this stuff that you're signing. Derrick Jones Jr. in the Clipper land, there's no upside with that piece. That's a win now piece. He just was in the finals with the Dallas Mavericks. I like him with the Mavericks. With the Clippers replacing Paul George, the downgrade is significant. James Harden on $35 million contract in 2024 is disgusting. It's appalling. There's no way you should be getting that much of your cap. I'm not counting anybody's dollars, but him having that much of your cap, what it is that he's expected to do, is laughable. It's absolutely laughable. There's no way. No way. And then the flip side is you let Paul George walk. You signing James Harden to that, but you're letting Paul George walk. But then you're trying to find a trade for $4 million Russell Westbrook. You let $200 million Paul George walk for nothing. It's just it. The Clippers going into this new building, I could argue, are probably at very best, a play-in tournament team. And that's assuming Kawhi Leonard has a healthy season, which is not a good assumption in most cases. They're like Chicago to me. They're in a no man's land situation. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. Unless they do something I don't see coming, they're not going anywhere. So that's what I got to say about them. Good job, Paul George, getting the hell out of there, man. Good job getting out of there. Because that is an absolute mess right now. What else? What else did I see, man? Sticks went to Chicago. Jalen Smith, that was in Indiana. He signed with the Chicago Bulls. Go play with Patrick Williams and whatever else is going to be up there. Josh Giddey. Somebody else signed with the Bulls too, I think. I don't remember exactly who it was, but they got two power forwards, I think, which I don't really understand, given the fact that they re-signed Williams. But that happened. Yeah, but basically Philly overnight, though. Philly took care of everything while we were sleeping with Paul George. Like around 1 a.m. or something like that, I was already knocked out. Kelly Oubre, Tyrese Maxey, they're really investing a lot in that big three. I heard one of the analysts say that's the best big three in the league: Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid. I haven't really given it any thought. I have to canvass my mind about the rest of the big three that could potentially be out there, but I don't think too many teams want to go the big three route. It may be an executable thing to do, but I think it's too risky for most teams to want to go that route. Obviously, you think about the Phoenix Suns with KD, Beal, and Booker, but I just don't look at Beal as a player who should be in that conversation anymore. He's getting paid like he is, but he's not that right now. So I would definitely put Philly above them. Maybe you look at Boston and say Drew Holiday, Brown, and Tatum. I don't know if you see it that way. But there's not too many teams that are actually going the big three route. Not many. It's just a risky way to build your team, and it puts you over all the aprons, and et cetera, et cetera. But Philadelphia has this locked down for many years. For the next 4 years, they have what they have. And I don't know their pick situation, but I don't believe they've mortgaged all of their picks or anything like that. So they have the cushion to maybe be able to have some wiggle room if for some reason something needs to happen. But Paul George is going to be Paul George. At worst, he's just injury prone and not going to play well in the playoffs. Joel Embiid, I worry about his injury circumstances. Tyrese Maxey is a fantastic young player who's on the rise. I don't know if he still has more development to do, but he's in a great spot. He got a running mate guard next to him in Jared McCain, as we already said, dancing TikTok man. I think he can actually play ball too. We have to see, but I hear good things. And then bringing back Kelly was a good idea. Bringing back Drummond was a good idea. Bringing in Eric Gordon, I just think he's not who he used to be, but in that role he could potentially be pretty good. Going to Philadelphia to play with Paul George. Essentially, I'm sure they had a conversation about going to Philly. Philly's interesting, man. Got to look and see if Klay will actually go to Philly too. I don't know if they can afford him. Probably not at this point. And as we know, KCP ended up going to Orlando. There's a chance he could go to Philly, but that didn't happen. I think Philly's done, y'all. I can't imagine they have any more money for anything else. I think that's like $600+ million into 3 people, on top of Kelly Oubre, on top of everything else they did. So I don't think there's a path for them getting anybody else, but you never know. So I think Philly's interesting, man. The Knicks, Philadelphia, and the Boston Celtics, those are some prime names at the top of the Eastern Conference. Some marquee franchises for this league are back at the top of the East, and it looks right. I don't know if anybody else is going to emerge. You got to see who's going to try to react to this in the Eastern Conference. But what I want to see is more of a mass exodus toward the Eastern Conference from the West. I'm glad Paul George did it. Hopefully more will too. Some of y'all need to get the hell out of the West. It's too log jammed. It's too damn difficult to make an all-star team out here because of it. I just really would be happy if there's like a mass exodus of players going back east. I really would, man. Bring some more balance to this league, because we got heavy on the draft too. A lot of what is best in the draft came west. So yeah, as a Western Conference fan, I want y'all to get the hell out of here. I really do. So thank you, Paul George, for doing that, leaving the Clippers in shambles. Laker fans are laughing at the Clippers. They suck, and I'm happy about it. What else? Gotta see what type of trades are made, man. There's still some more movement could be going on. I'm looking at Golden State, and I'm telling you, man, if I'm Steph Curry, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be out in the Golden State Warrior uniform. I know they have no intentions of losing him, but Dunleavy is doing all types of weird stuff. And if they lose Klay Thompson, it's going to be the first year since his rookie season probably that he doesn't have Klay Thompson on his team. I don't know, man. I don't think that the trade that they wanted to make for Paul George was necessarily the best trade for them, because they really were going to give away players like Kuminga and Moody, and I think that their best bet is to try to hold on to their young pieces. At this point, they got some good ones. Podziemski, Trace Jackson-Davis, those are good players. I will say that under Mike Dunleavy's tutelage, I have liked how the Golden State Warriors have drafted. They didn't have a first rounder this year. I think they had a second rounder. They took somebody I'm not familiar with, but I hear that player was good. That's the best I can do there. But last year they did a great job in the draft. But their free agency game, their cap management game, I'm not seeing it. It's not. It ain't equating to anything that's looking good to me. And if I'm Steph Curry, the only thing keeping me in Golden State is my legacy, because it surely ain't the moves they're making. I don't think I can win a championship here anymore if I'm him. Draymond Green contract going to look worse and worse as the years progress. Andrew Wiggins still on tab. He unhappy. They're trying to trade him, but that situation is going south, and I don't think you can get a whole lot for Andrew Wiggins, to be honest with you. I don't see a good trade coming there. So, I don't know, man. If I'm the Golden State Warriors, obviously I don't want to reset, because moving Steph Curry is like the cardinal sin. But if I'm Steph Curry, I'm really sitting down with my family and wondering if moving out of Golden State, moving out of the San Francisco area is something that we see for our future. Because I don't want to do this with them if I'm him. No more than Klay does. I don't want to do this. because it's his body that he's gonna have to be running around doing too much for the rest of these guys, where they try to develop into their best selves. And because of his presence, they're not going to actually fully surround those young players with young talent. So he's just going to be kind of on a no man's land kind of team. Him and Kawhi Leonard, they're just going to be kind of running around in their respective situations, not really actually doing anything. In a ever strengthening Western Conference, I just don't see why he would do that, man. If he got prime years left, he can join a good team, find himself a team where the management runs things correctly, and not have to deal with what Golden State is going to be dealing with going forward. Because they're not very good, man. They weren't very good last year, but they about to lose Clay. I don't see it getting any better. So I don't know. We'll see. Steph Curry is an amazing basketball player. I still think he has plenty left, but it's about to be a waste. It's about to be a legitimate waste. And just so he could say he retired in a Golden State uniform, maybe it's worth it to him. But I think their championship days are well behind them, man. Well behind them. So that's something that needs to be said. If I'm Steph Curry, I'm probably getting the hell out of there. If not this year, next year. I'm gone. I don't think you leave overnight like a thief in the night, but I do think you start planning your exit. Start conditioning your mind for moving on. Because that's a team in need of rebuilding in terms of getting all the contracts off their books and moving forward with the Trace Jackson Davis, Podziemski's, Kumingas. That team should be on that timeline, in my opinion. Especially if Clay's now out the door. It's just the end of an era. So I don't know what the hell they're going to do. Like I said, that Draymond contract isn't movable. It's a bad contract. It only makes sense so long as it's with Golden State. The moment you try to move that thing, you're going to find out it ain't worth nothing at all. So, yeah, man, these are the type of things we're thinking about right now, man. I would love for the Western Conference to just take some of these really good players and just go back east, bro. Because y'all ain't about to win nothing out here. It's too log jam. The young teams are getting better. It's not even worth staying here no more for a lot of you teams. So that's my whole point of view, man. I will say the East has strengthened, though. They're not strong, bottom strong, but their top three are strong. I don't know if that equates to a good Eastern Conference. It probably doesn't. But at least we know the Boston Celtics have to run into two contenders every year instead of just one going forward. So I think that's encouraging, so long as Philadelphia can overcome the injury issues of what their core could potentially be prone to have. That could potentially be a disaster if Paul George is his worst self when he gets there. Daryl Morey is very ambitious. You got to give him that, man. That is an ambitious GM. We'll see what comes of it. But CP3 going to the San Antonio Spurs on a 1-year, $11 million deal. CP3 finding a way to continue to get money out of this league. I think it's politics more than anything else. He hasn't proven he can stay healthy. You give him a 1-year deal, all I'm doing is probably trading that at the deadline. Overpay, honestly. I just don't think CP3 really has anything left to give. Now, granted, the one problem he has is defense, and the one thing that he's not going to have a problem with is backline defense when you consider Wemby in the paint. Plus, Wemby's going to make his life extremely easy because he's going to get passes off to Wemby. So I could see this being a renaissance year for CP3, but what does that look like? The moment he has a growing injury, he's going to miss like 40 games. This happens every year. It's been like that since the Rockets. I mean, obviously you expect him to come in and mentor the young guys, Castle particularly, teach him how to play the point guard position. But as I always say, I don't need to give a guy a roster spot to do that. I just give him a consulting job or give him an assistant coaching job. I don't need a player to eat up a roster spot to mentor anybody. That player needs to retire and I can put him on my coaching staff. That's how I look at that. Roster spots are too valuable. They need to be tradable assets. Chris Paul, $11 million could be tradable if you find a patsy that'll take it, especially at an expiring deal. It might not be that bad of a deal for a team that wants to create cap space for next season. at $11 million. But how much is $11 million really worth at this point? We see guys like Derrick Jones Jr. getting like $18, $20 million. I mean, that's like the lower level role players are getting that. So I just don't know what that really does for a team if I want to trade for it and try to create space. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I just don't think Chris Paul's worth even a third of that, man. I really don't. At this stage of his career, for what it is he's shown me over the last couple of years, he ain't worth a third of that. But if you're the San Antonio Spurs, you have plenty of money to give, so you got to put it somewhere, and that's the key to this collective bargaining agreement. You have to use the money. So you're going to see teams that don't have really a whole lot of reasoning for giving a certain amount to a certain guy, give that money to that certain guy because it has to be used up, which I think is a flaw in the system itself. I should be able to set that money aside and not have to give it to anybody if I'm going to be overpaying somebody who's not going to do half of what it is I'm paying them to do just to meet the threshold of what has to be paid. I should be able to transfer that into some type of trade exception like entity that I could put on the back of my books to trade at any moment. That makes so much more sense for the teams rather than to be forking out money, overpaying guys just to use up all my money. That's just stupid. Then I have contracts I can't move and assets that I truly don't believe in. No one else does either. It just forces teams into bad decisions. So that's a flaw in the collective bargaining agreement. But yeah, man, I think free agency was overstated as it pertains to what people expected in the first couple of hours. I think we need to readjust our minds when it comes to free agency opening day and just understand that it's the beginning of a market that could last a couple of weeks, not necessarily an hour or two where all of this news is going to be flooding in and we'll be so excited. We have had seasons like that in the past, but right now it's more like what I expect to see more so in the future. You're going to see stuff trickle in over the course of a couple of weeks. Free agents are going to sign. They're going to try to have their teams in place fully before summer league, but opening day is not necessarily a day where you expect to see everything happen. So that's why I wanted people to just kind of don't let the media back you into thinking that your team is not doing anything when free agency opens and they get on the phone and start talking to general managers. It could take a week, a month for certain deals to be done. So if your general manager hasn't signed anybody, he may be on the phone trying to make a big deal that you'd be very happy about. Getting your hopes up and killing him on social media or whatever the case may be is a product of you being riled up by an entity that knows better but wants you not to, so that they can sell whatever it is they're trying to sell, as in get you to pay attention to their publications. You being disappointed is just as intriguing to them as you being excited. You know, because they got your attention, they get you talking. So they're not going to tell you the truth about free agency day. But free agency day is not a day where everything happens at once. It just ain't, man. It's really not. So let's adjust our minds, because a lot of us are really angry at our GMs, particularly here in LA. Why haven't the Lakers done anything? You really want the Lakers to do any of the stuff that's been done here? You want to spend $70 million on James Harden? And a lot of people think they do. Why didn't the Lakers get Jonas Valanciunas? Because that is a bad contract. And Jonas Valanciunas is not going to perform up to that. I want to see the Lakers do this. I heard one guy say, man, Eric Gordon went to the Philadelphia 76ers. What are the Lakers doing? Like, Eric Gordon is not who he used to be. So you definitely don't want your team signing Eric Gordon unless you're the Philadelphia 76ers. Like, these are the type of things, it's like, man, don't let these people who speak about this sport get you riled up into thinking that moves need to be made, whether they're good or not, so that your team can look like they're doing something. A lot of times, if not most of the times, doing nothing is better than doing something to make the fans happy. Most of the time, 3-4 months down the road, you're more pleased with the moves that were taking their time to make. Even the year when Kawhi Leonard had us sitting there as Laker fans waiting for him to sign with us or the Clippers, and we sat all week and watched all these moves be made, around us, and we were sitting there saying, Rob, what are you doing? Why are we waiting on Kawhi when other people are getting signed? That particular year, we won the championship. And it looked as bleak as ever because we didn't have everything we thought we needed. All these guys are signing everywhere, and Kawhi Leonard chose the Clippers. The Lakers are doom and gloom, right? We won the championship that year. So don't think that your team overpaying for some guy as the buzzer sounds for the opening of free agency is a sign that your GM is doing a good job. Sometimes it's the complete opposite. Sometimes it's best to just be patient. So that's pretty much what I got to say, man. I'm sure there were other moves made that I'm not thinking about, but I just want to come here and give you what's on the top of my head. Philadelphia put together their team. They are a contender. Top heavy, but they do have some depth to show for it back there. Some nice role players, some nice wings. I think Paul George brings a hell of a dynamic there. It's a 4-year deal. I expect for him to play pretty well over the next 4 years. I don't know if he's going to be the same player he was with the Clippers, but starting to decline a little bit. But still, his skill set should help them. Hopefully he doesn't fall off a cliff. They've invested a lot into him. So we'll see how that goes for Joel and those guys. But that's really the news. We wait on Klay Thompson, man. And as a Laker fan, I'm not up for giving up any assets. If he wants to sign here outright for our mid-level exception, leave the Golden State Warriors high and dry, that's exactly what I want him to do. So I can keep all my damn assets and use them in different deals to help improve our team. I don't think Klay Thompson, in a nutshell, coming to a team that ain't good enough to win a championship is a positive asset. I don't think so. Giving away D'Angelo Russell, a fairly prime point guard, and maybe like a Jalen Hood-Schifino, a young player still developing, for Wash Klay, it's not a good decision. It's not a good decision. Now, if you're going to bring him to a team that has all of its assets and you found a way to get value where it wasn't any, and you bring him to that, that's good. Like if you can bring us Jeremy Grant for Gabe Vincent and D'Angelo Russell, and then find a way to get Klay outright, and you slap him next to Anthony Davis, now you're starting to replenish value that you let go in bad moves in the past. But if you use more assets on Klay Thompson and you're not able to use assets to get Grant, you've continued to draw from your assets or stayed even at best. That's not what we need to do. We need to find value. And so that's exactly what I would explain to Klay. Like, respectfully, brother, you need to sign with us outright, because we already are in a deficit with our value. So we need to be able to manifest value out of nothing, which means we need to be able to do deals that are lopsided for us to get us back to even, based on that Russell Westbrook decision, based on the other decisions that we made that were poor in our past. That's why we're not good enough to win, because we keep doing stuff like that. So with all due respect, brother, we can't do a sign and trade because it's not in our best interest, and we won't be bringing you to a team that we feel is good enough to win if we do that. We're not in a positive place as it pertains to that value. So we got to get back to positive to be on the level with other teams who are building from a positive space, which is why these teams are deeper and better than us in a lot of cases. We can't afford to do negative value moves. So that's what I'll explain to Klay, man. I hope he'd get it, and I hope he'd be on board. Because if he does sign with us outright, and then we can turn around and get a Jeremy Grant, now we're back in the money. And his pace makes more sense because it's more of a team that could probably compete in our ever-changing and strengthening West. If he's coming in, drawing away from our value just to be here so he can align his pockets a little more, he's going to be hurting the team in doing so. And kind of defeating the purpose in what LeBron is doing, which is essentially leaving some value on the board for the money that he's leaving here for us to get talent. So that's what needs to be explained to Klay in thorough. What you're trying to do is get a sign and trade so that you don't leave Golden State high and dry for nothing, and make sure you get a little extra money in your pockets. But what I'm telling you is, if you do that with the Lakers, you're taking away from what we can actually do to build a team that's good enough to win a championship. So somebody needs to explain that to him. BDF44, I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.